This week in gaming, Siberia Free has been delayed to Q1 of 2017, Clockwork Empires leaves early access on October 26, Gravity Rush 2 has been delayed to January 20th, 2017, Digital Homicide is no more, Ubisoft has officially confirmed Beyond Good and Evil 2, yet again another official confirmation of a game we've been waiting on for a very long time, here's hoping it doesn't disappear again. Mod support is coming to Bethesda's PS4 games, albeit with a bit of a nerf. You can only make mods that employ pre-existing game assets, as importing new assets is currently off the table thanks to Sony. Also, there's a fantastic retrowave generator at photofunia.com, and this week everybody's been using it to make these things. This is 1RBC Gaming Weekly. First off, regarding Digital Homicide, great news. The developer and publisher of such trash as Slaughtering Grounds, Temper Tantrum, and One Ball to Win is no longer part of the video game industry. Why is this good news? Well, besides the fact that they put out terrible games, they were bad for the gaming community at large. They behaved in such a way that made them a toxic presence. A couple of weeks back, they were threatening to sue people who left bad reviews of their games for $18 million. This wasn't in the jokey, Daikatana marketing way. They were serious. They subpoenaed Valve to obtain the identities of the Steam users who left negative reviews. In response to this, Steam removed every Digital Homicide game from the storefront. This week, according to a statement made to TechRaptor by Digital Homicide founder James Romine, Digital Homicide is destroyed. It's been stomped into the ground from 1,000 directions, he says, and use is discontinued. What this means is that $18 million lawsuit is off, and the company is dead. Here's hoping they stay dead. They've been a blight on the industry and bad for the consumer. Their games were born without love, or care, or attention, and it looks like that's the way that they're going to die. You might remember the Counter-Strike gambling site controversy from earlier in the year. To get you up to speed quickly, it was actually multiple controversies. First, a YouTuber owned a site allowing users to gamble for Counter-Strike Go items, and he made videos of himself winning items, without disclosing his ownership. This was very scummy, but it gets worse. Those imaginary guns are worth a lot of real-world money, and kids were using the site to gamble. Guess what? We're a civilized society that doesn't allow kids to gamble, and the government in the United States has caught wind of this. The Washington State Gambling Commission has notified Valve that they need to stop allowing the transfer of virtual weapons, known as skins, for gambling activities through the company's Steam platform. Basically, the way that third-party skin gambling sites work is that they plug into Valve's API and thus are technically using Steam as a platform. So, technically, Valve is considered to be facilitating them, even if they don't approve of their existence. Valve, however, says that they've sent cease and desist orders to the websites responsible for creating unregulated gambling platforms using their API, and in this way they're in compliance with the law. What do you think? Does Valve need to take steps at the API level to make it impossible for a third-party website to create an unregulated and potentially unfair gambling experience? Should Valve just open a casino and become the microtransaction-pushing monster we know they can be? Should children be gambling? If you answer yes to that last question, I'll assume that you're some sort of monster. You can let us know what you think on Twitter at OneRuleBeCool. We'll be more than happy to share your thoughts on next week's episode. This has been quite the week for virtual reality. To start with, the PlayStation VR is set to be released on October 13th, and the reviews are in. So far, so good. Reviewers have praised the device's lack of latency and that it's a simple plug-and-play solution, though it has been noted that it's not quite as technically advanced as the Rift or Vive, and that its lower resolution display just doesn't look as good. Having used both the Rift and PlayStation VR, I have to say that the PSVR is a really good piece of machinery. Personally, I think it can hold its own against the Rift, and it's quite comfortable to use, even if you wear glasses like I do. That said, in the end, it comes down to the games. For the PSVR to really be a competitor to the Rift and Vive, it's going to need to have a regular supply of impressive experiences, or at the very least, have one killer app, which here means a VR game that blows people away but also has a strong long-term hook. If you'd like to try out the PlayStation VR, There are now demo units available to try out in certain retailers, so if you'd like to try it before buying, you can. In other VR news this week, Oculus Connect Free kicked off. The annual press conference this year had a focus on social stuff, which I suppose has some interesting implications and potential applications for gaming, but honestly it didn't look all that exciting. What they showed off seemed like a more advanced edition of PlayStation Home. Basically, you have a me-style avatar, and you can hang out with friends in virtual reality, which is cool, but it didn't look game-changing in and of itself. During the keynote, they also showed off the Oculus Touch controllers, which now have a price of $199 and are set to be released in December. The Oculus Touch controllers are designed specifically for use in virtual reality and feature gesture recognition. They're some of the most advanced controllers on the market, and they look pretty promising. They're also very pricey. Additionally, for an extra $79, one can purchase an additional sensor for the sake of room-scale virtual reality experiences with the Oculus Touch. The Oculus Touch ships on December 6th and comes bundled with VR Sports Challenge and The Unspoken. Oculus VR also unveiled their next project, codenamed Santa Cruz. It's a prototypical wireless VR headset. There's no word on when that's coming out, but we do know that it uses cameras. These cameras chart the space around you to collect positional data for the sake of tracking. Again, it's still a prototype, but it's a step away from tethers that may get in your way while gaming. Personally, I'm not sure who this press conference was really directed at. While I understand that Oculus Connect is developer-focused, honestly, how many developers are making games for people who want to play socially with fancy avatars? I don't mean to put down technology. I love the concept of socially oriented gaming, but are people going to plunk down hundreds of dollars to play Go Fish with their friends in virtual space? Probably not. It seems more likely that virtual reality telepresence and casual gaming is more likely to gain a foothold in the mobile market, where low-cost headsets meant to be used with smartphones provide a low barrier to entry and generally have a wider appeal. Again, this isn't to put down social gaming. Indeed, I hope that some of the developers in attendance really come up with something clever for use with the Rift. This week, Google held an event showing off their upcoming Pixel phones, which are going to be VR ready at launch. They then showed off their VR headsets, and they're made out of, sweatpants? The Daydream View, as it's called, looks like a sports bra for your face, and according to Google, it's lighter and more comfortable than similar products. The Daydream View is designed for smartphones. You just slip one in, and boom, cheap and easy VR. I've not tried this in particular, so I'll not judge it. I have used mobile VR solutions before. Specifically, I have a couple of cardboard headsets lying around, and you know what? They're surprisingly good. That said, they're not necessarily the most comfortable things in the world. I do like the idea of a comfy VR headset. I suppose that Google is really pushing VR not just for gaming, but also as a way of interfacing with one's device, and it seems to represent an interesting paradigm shift. It's an idea that Mark Zuckerberg pushed pretty hard during that Oculus Connect Free keynote, VR as a computing platform. What do you think? Does VR have a future not only as a gaming platform, but also for general computing? Hit us up on Twitter at OneRuleBeCool and let us know. In Pokemon Go news this week, some changes will be made to the Friendly Gym battle system. Now, when you go to a friendly gym, the combat points of the Pokemon there will be scaled to those of your own Pokemon. So when you go to train, you'll be better able to level up a gym. This is going to have an interesting effect on the game, because more players will be able to level up gyms. Expect it to be harder to take down rival gyms. Now personally, I love this idea. It makes the game much more accessible to players of all levels, so you won't feel like you're being punished for playing later than everybody else. Additionally, it was announced that an upcoming feature will allow players a greater likelihood of catching Pokemon based on how many of those that they've already caught. So, if you've caught a bunch of fire types, you're more likely to catch fire types in the future without having them run away or break out of their balls. So the in-game badges are finally more than dumb achievements. They actually mean something. Lastly, Niantic announced that Pokemon Go is now playable in Africa. People in Kenya, Madagascar, Liberia, Togo, Botswana, South Africa, Egypt, and many other countries shall know the joys and frustrations of wandering around hoping to catch something that never actually shows up. Yes, I'm still bitter about that Ninetales. Now, different continents in the game have been assigned different region-exclusive Pokemon. Tauros and Mr. Mime can only be caught in North America and Europe respectively, while Farfetch'd and Kangaskhan are exclusive to Asia and Australia. There has been a rumor that Ditto is exclusive to players in Africa, but there has been no confirmation that this is the case. In-game releases this week, the 4X Endless Space 2 hit Steam, and thus far, it's been accruing positive reviews from players and critics. Currently in early access, in this game you're playing as a leader taking a civilization into outer space. You make contact and do diplomacy with other species, discovering ancient alien artifacts and conquering the stars. The Endless series of strategy games are all quite good. I own the original Endless Legend myself, but to my own shame, I've not yet played it. Perhaps I'll remedy that soon. If you're looking for an intergalactic 4X game and you don't mind that it's not quite finished yet, check out Endless Space 2, which is currently available for Windows. If you'd like to try a game in the series first to have a better idea of what you're getting into, check out the original Endless Space, which is currently available on Steam for Mac and Windows. Maybe you want to take command of a spaceship, but you want to blow more things up. Well, if you're looking for a shmup, you might want to check out the newly released Neon Ultra. Available on Steam for Mac and Windows, it draws on both Geometry Wars and Asteroids for inspiration. I've got to say, it looks really good. Yes, I have a lot of Neon shmups in my library already, but this looks like one that I wouldn't mind adding. I've not played it, but the reviews are in from the players, and it seems that they love it. The mix of elements of other shmups apparently works very well in Neon Ultra. Check it out if you get the opportunity. If you're in the mood for a real challenge, Shenzhen.io went into early access on Steam this week. It's a Zachtronics game. Yes, that same Zachtronics that's responsible for the complex programming puzzle TIS-100. In Shenzhen.io, you build circuits in order to design electronics. You also write code and have to use the in-game manual in order to know just what you're working with. Now bear in mind, this game is complex. If you have a real interest in programming, you should definitely check it out. Just bear in mind, it's hard. You have to use actual programming in order to advance through the game. That said, thus far, the users really seem to like it. It's gotten great reviews on Steam, and according to the developers, it's going to be in early access for at least 2 months before it's completely finished. Paper Mario Color Splash was released on Wii U this week. The game is the latest in the Paper Mario subseries, and it's gotten some middling reviews. It's an RPG in which you're on a mission to restore color to an island that's been drained monochrome by Bowser. You have to collect cards to battle, fight bad dudes. It's all standard RPG fare. From what I've heard, however, it doesn't really have the quality or charm of the old Paper Mario games. It's better than Sticker Star, but it's nothing special. A pity, really. That said, it's not a bad game. Just, it's not an especially noteworthy or innovative one. Now, there's a quick heads up if you're looking for a good game for free. Next week, Beyond Good and Evil will be free on PC. Starting October 12th, you can get the game through Ubisoft's Club. Now, in case you're unfamiliar with it, Beyond Good and Evil is a fantastic 3D action/adventure platformer. As we reported earlier, it's getting a sequel, which has been in development hell for the last several years. Now, to get this game, you just need to go to club.ubi.com. There is one caveat. You have to use Uplay. That said, this is a game well worth paying for, in spite of its age. That you're getting it for free means that you no longer have an excuse to have not played it, so be sure to check it out. And now, for a brief word from our sponsor. Oh, would you look at that? I am today's sponsor. Alright, folks, here's what I have to show off. A Patreon. That's right. I've been reduced to begging for money on the internet. No, not really. Here's the thing. I've decided that I'd like to spend more time making cool editorials on video games, really going in-depth on game culture, design, and business. I love doing the news, but I thought, hey, wouldn't it be great to do some more thought-provoking stuff as well? Of course, there is a fair amount of work involved in this, hence a Patreon. To be straightforward and transparent, I plan on producing at least one really cool gaming editorial per month no matter what. I want to do this whether or not I make any money on Patreon. That said, if you'd like to support the endeavor, you can go to patreon.com/1rbc and drop a couple of bucks. It's an easy way to show your appreciation. For a mere $1, you'll get early access to upcoming editorials and articles. You will also get the inalienable right to vote. Vote on which editorial I give priority to and produce next. What's more, if you subscribe at the $3 level, you'll get a copy of my upcoming book on dealing with the press. Now this is a pretty steep discount, mind you. If you're an indie developer and you'd like some insight from the mind of a journalist on best practices for reaching out to the press, this is for you. I'm also offering an introductory rate of $15 a pop for consultations. If you'd like to chat with me over Skype and pick my mind for info on best practices when it comes to the press, you'll be able to buy access to my brain at a bargain. You may be thinking, well, that's all good and dandy, but what sort of editorials do you make? Good hypothetical question. I've got a concrete answer for you, and it's coming right now. Check out this month's editorial on the psychology of fanboyism.
Green as a potato. I'm a vegetable. I don't know.
Nintendo, Sony Pony, Xbox Fanboy, PC Master Race. All of the above are manifestations of identity in the world of video games. As you may rightly assume, not all of these are friendly designations, though there's a surprisingly big community around the PC Master Race, as you may soon discover. On the surface, these labels and their usage resemble mundane playground name-calling. Ultimately, however, they reveal insight into the nature of the video game community at large, and the ties between video games, consumerism, and identity. Breaking down labels. For the uninitiated, it's common knowledge in the gaming world that people have their preferences when it comes to which platform they prefer to do their gaming on. Stereotypically, people with a fondness for family-friendly games and the franchises of their childhood will do their gaming on Nintendo platforms, and they will decry the supposed lack of originality and charm that seemingly plague games on other platforms, while turning a blind eye to the fact that Nintendo always releases a new Mario game, and that it's always a platformer with the same basic gameplay, coupled with a fresh gimmick, such as making you build levels by yourself because Mr. Miyamoto's far too busy with his real favorite franchise, Pikmin. These people get called Nintendos. Sony ponies and Xbox fanboys, meanwhile, are essentially a Cerberus short ahead, fighting one another over which platform is best. It's not uncommon to see heated arguments over which console has the best exclusive games, over which of the two companies, Sony and Microsoft, is slightly less morally bankrupt than the other, and what owning either console means in the grand scheme of one's life. It's a meaningless trading of blows in the shadowy underworld of consumerism. Finally, the PC Master Race, or hashtag PC Master Race as it's known in some places, has members that view the term PC Master Race as an insult, point of pride, a joke, and a growing community. It's the Yankee Doodle Dandy of gaming identities, and a lot of folks have varying feelings on it. Unlike the aforementioned names, ponies and drones, which seem to imply that the people who own certain pieces of hardware are owned by them, PC Master Race implies superiority, which is a large part of why it went from a mockery of elitist attitudes around PC gaming to an embracing of them. This behavior, popularly known as fanboyism, fangirlism, or the more gender-neutral fanpersonism, is nothing new. For as long as there have been things to consume, there have been people obsessing over them, and people fighting over which things are the best. People have long debated the merits of media and devices, and that's great. I'm a video game critic. I talk about the merits of games as an art form, and I'm more than happy to hear differing viewpoints. Trouble in the form of fanpersonism generally emerges when viewpoints and preferences become integral parts of a person's identity. The trouble is thus doubled when these people view these aspects of their identity as coming under attack. To be fair, we're speaking in generalities here. I'm certain that most gamers don't have strong feelings towards people who game on platforms other than their own. But at the same time, that's not to say that a person's purchases don't play a part in their personal identities. And that's not to say that these arguments don't happen and this bizarre animosity doesn't exist. The psychology. It's one thing to prefer one piece of equipment over another, but entirely another thing to make assumptions about a person's intelligence and moral character based on which they chose to purchase. So, why do people get so riled up over what $400 machine somebody else bought? In the field of cognitive science, there's a term that perfectly encapsulates the issue: choice-supportive bias. Choice-supportive bias is the idea that a person becomes biased in favor of a thing after choosing it, minimizing in their minds the problems with their choice, and imagining that their decisions were somehow better than they actually were. Generally, choice-supportive bias tends to rear its head when people are dealing with the consequences, good or bad, of a major decision. Video game consoles and gaming PCs are expensive. Purchasing one could be thought of as a major decision. Still, people make other major purchases all the time. I can't remember the last time I watched homeowners fighting over the moral character of a raised ranch. So what makes the world of video games different? Two factors: community and identity. The two go hand in hand here. By their very nature, video games create communities. Just like movies and books, they're media that a person can consume and experience and appreciate. It is in experience that identity is built. The things we experience build our character. Think back on your childhood and the books you've read, the places you've been, and the people you've known. All these things have built your character, your identity. It stands to reason that when people share aspects of identity, they'll form communities. You can hardly miss the communities around video games these days. You can see them on the internet, where they're at their most obvious, during such massive video game gatherings as PAX East, when they're most prominent, and at their worst, when fanpersonism, or fanboyism, or fangirlism, or whatever you prefer really, leads to flame wars on the internet. That said, video game communities aren't always big or obvious, and they're not always bad. Game communities are responsible for giving to charities, fostering and inspiring art of all sorts, from paintings to music to new video games entirely. Just like any other community, video game communities are capable of doing really cool things. The question still stands, however. What role does community play in fanboyism? Well, communities create a sort of feedback loop into the notion of art feeding an identity. Think about it. You come to love a piece of art so much, it becomes a part of who you are. Finding a group of people who love the art as much as you do creates an instant link between you and those people. You feel connected, and that connection nourishes your identity. Thanks to the memory distortion of choice-supportive bias, you become certain that you bought your game or console not because it was the choice that appealed to you personally the most, but because it was the right choice to make. You imagine that you made the choice because you were smart, because you're an upstanding member of the community that you joined after you made the choice, and maybe, just maybe, because you're in some way better than the people who've made the other choice. What happens when somebody says something against a thing that plays a part in your identity? You might perceive it as an attack against the thing you love, or worse, perceive it as an attack on your identity itself. Hence fanboyism. The notion that one's identity is under attack is upsetting enough on its own, but there's still more at play here. What happens when choice-supportive bias gets involved? The decision that a person made to buy and enjoy a thing, be it a game, or a console, or DLC, or what have you, this thing that's given them a sense of identity and community, becomes better in their mind because it was a choice that made them right in a sense. When these factors all come together, it can lead to passionate arguments over silly things. And that's something that corporations are more than willing to take advantage of. Commercially exploiting identity.
Our desire was and is to demonstrate the ways the living room would no longer be the center of the PlayStation ecosystem, the gamer room. PS4 was founded on the conviction of giving gamers the multi-dimensional and transformative play experiences they expect and deserve. However, we know there are still a large number of gamers waiting to join the PlayStation 4 family.
At Xbox, our mission is simple: to put you, the gamers, at the center of everything we do.
If you've been into gaming for a while, you've almost inevitably heard about E3, or the Electronic Entertainment Expo. Every year, game hardware manufacturers and game publishers show off upcoming games, consoles, and other things. It's a huge marketing event. What you might not have noticed, however, is how they tend to harp on the notion of their games and devices as being integral parts of the identities of their consumers. If you haven't noticed it before, you'll certainly notice it now. Exploiting a consumer's sense of identity for commercial gain is nothing new. It's the oldest trick in the book. If you ride a Harley, you're a real biker. If you ride a John Deere mower, you're a real homeowner. And if you take your children to Disney World, you're a happy family. When it comes to selling games, however, it seems that these statements made on stage during press conferences become arguing points in the wars between fanboys, ideas to be endlessly scrutinized and fought over. It's pathetic to watch. Should companies take on a measure of responsibility for the stupid fights they cause when they exploit fanboyism? Maybe, maybe not. I don't really feel like it's my place to legislate that. In more recent years, Sony and Microsoft, the two main competitors in the ongoing console wars, have taken up positions more akin to apathetic respect of one another, occasionally swapping compliments between executives, which is cute. But should they take responsibility for telling consumers, kids especially, that these devices are supposed to become part of their identity? Why blame just the gaming industry? Just about everybody pushing a product does it. You want to be a Toys R Us kid? A Gerber baby? A BMW driving jerk? A Ray-Ban wearing poser? A Hot Topic shopping sellout? A Monsanto environmental monstrosity? The thing about advertising identity is that when video games get involved, it's especially damaging because people are getting involved at a deeper level. What it all means. At first glance, it may appear that the world of gaming is a predominantly hostile one thanks to armies of marauding fanboys fighting their pointless wars, and that the end result of gaming meeting identity is conflict. While it's true that unbridled fanboyism is a bad thing, video games and identity can be harnessed for good. Case in point, the PC Master Race. This community has raised eyebrows for a number of reasons. Their very name, Master Race, is controversial for very obvious reasons. As a group, however, they've been among the most inclusive and respectful gaming communities. Take a look at one of their gathering places on Reddit. Sure, there are plenty of people making fun of consoles as being inferior for gaming to PCs, but it's all extremely self-aware. I'm not going to say that it's a panacea. There are still bad apples within the PCMR community, but by and large, my experiences with the community have been positive. The reason for that is largely thanks to people taking the lead as moderators, setting a tone that encourages people to be both welcoming and helpful. While the PC Master Race community believes, quite strongly and quite clearly, that PCs are the best platform for gaming, they also believe that it's best not to push people away from your platform through elitist behavior. This gaming community could serve as a model for others, or at the very least, offer lessons that other communities could learn from. For starters, there's nothing wrong with thinking that your choice of game or platform is better than another. But be aware, liking something that you think is better doesn't actually make you a better or smarter person than somebody who likes something else. At the same time, there's nothing wrong with embracing the things you love or even in integrating them into your identity. But recognize that criticism of a thing you love is not an attack on you as a person or an attack on the community that you're part of. What do you think? Can fanboyism be a force for good when it's self-aware? Sound off below or hit us up and follow at OneRuleBeCool on Twitter, and be sure to follow me at Jordan_Cameron if you'd like to hear more of what I have to say. Well, that's it for this week's game news. What did you think of our editorial? Your honest feedback is always appreciated. You can hit us up on Twitter at OneRuleBeCool and let us know. If you really liked it and feel that it added some value to your life and would like to support future content of the sort, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/onerbc. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.